Welcome to the Quantum Guide Show, where you will find interesting guests and discussions about cutting-edge topics to assist you on your journey. The Quantum Guide Show is ideally suited to the newly awakened and for those who feel isolated by their newfound beliefs. The mind, body, and spirit thrive when we have a mission, and there is no greater mission than to become the change that we wish to see in the world. So hit the like button, subscribe to my YouTube, Odyssey, and Telegram channels, and share this show with your friends. Welcome back to the Quantum Guide Show. Today in episode 93, I have a new guest, Ian Faulkner. Ian was influenced by his dad to become a spiritual explorer in his teens, taking up yoga and meditation. Later, as a hippie, he explored psychedelic drugs for spiritual exploration. This helped open his mind to help him to become an inventor too. Inventors need to escape from belief in order to find new ideas and new ways of doing things. Ian believes that his drug experiences opened a very valuable pathway to innovative thinking. During the 1980s, he worked at the Canadian National Research Council in Ottawa, doing research on solar thermal and solar voltaic technologies. And in 1986, he started to earn his money as an inventor as a full-time career. Over his lifetime, Ian has spent time as a concrete researcher, journalist, aluminum carpenter, land surveyor, genealogy researcher, museum technician, inventor, Traeger bodywork therapist, beekeeper, university lab manager, and bodywork sexual healer. His broad range of experiences in many different fields has been key to the inventing of new technologies, which you can view at microsec.net and elsewhere. The links will be in the description below. In 1987, Ian studied Traeger bodywork through the Traeger Institute in California. Since then, he has been exploring all types of bodywork healing. In 2016, Ian studied sexual healing bodywork through the Eros Spirit School on Salt Spring Island. He graduated from the 150-hour apprenticeship program as an intimacy educator. This type of healing work has become mainstream in California and Washington State for the treatment of people who have suffered sexual abuse or have sexual performance issues. Today, Ian continues to design electronic products, and since 2010, his focus has been on healing inventions and devices, which we're going to talk about today. Hi, Ian. Welcome to the Quantum Guide Show. How are you doing today?
Well, thank you so much for deciding to put me on the show. I'm doing very well. And what should be the focus of today's talk?
Well, I thought to inspire the viewers, let's start off talking about what happened, if you're comfortable with it, to your partner. And she became very, very ill. And I understand she had some surgery, and the prognosis was not good, but yourself and your daughter came up with an amazing way to help get your partner back to the way she was before. I found this very inspiring, and I'm wondering if you could share that with the viewers today.
Okay, very good. Yeah, it was a very interesting experience, and Barbara is 100% recovered today, although it was a slow healing process to completely recover, which took about 20 years. But yeah, I'll describe what happened to her. Barbara had it's called a subependymoma tumor in the very center of the brain. And this is triggered usually by chemical exposure. And in fact, when she was going to university, she worked in a shop where they coated saw blades with vinyl chloride. And it was molten vinyl chloride, and it gave off vinyl chloride fumes, which are known to produce this type of a tumor. And it was classified as being non-malignant or semi-malignant. And semi-malignant means it's not going to come back, but it's going to be very difficult to remove, and there's going to be damage. So anyways, I'll make a long story short. It destroyed a lot of the frontal area of the brain, which is where the personality sits. So it was very sad to learn that she would have to grow a new personality, and the surgeon warned me that it might not even be the same personality, and we might not get along afterwards. So basically, it'd be like it was a lobotomy sort of injury. So sure enough, after the operation, she was like Spock. She was totally intellectual. There's no sign of love or sort of human understanding. And she would, when we came to visit, she'd just be reading the paper, and she hardly would look up at all. So my daughter and I were pretty shocked to see what she was like. But over the next few days, you could see a new personality was growing, and she was becoming more and more human. But we want her back the way she was. So my daughter dreamed up this ingenious solution. She said, well, if she's growing a new personality, we have home on the computer every piece of music she ever listened to from the age of 14 up to her current favorite music. And so we decided, and this was 20 years ago, you could buy MP3 players. They were quite big. They had a hard drive in them. And we transferred all of her music to that, so that every day she could listen to the music that had inspired her over the years to try and my daughter assumed that the music you liked was like a hologram of your personality. That was her theory. So we we had this all arranged. I went and talked to the doctors the next day. I said I'd like this to be added to her treatment plan, that she listens for a few hours every day to this music. And the first neurologist said, "Oh, we can't do that. It would provide too much stimulation, and it would cause real problems." And I got quite angry about it. I said, "Well, look, you're letting her watch television, but you're not willing to let her listen to her favorite music." And he says, "Well," he said, "Well, I don't think we should do this." And I said, "Well, what is the reason behind it? Can you show me the science?" And he says, "Well, no, that's just my opinion." And I said, "Well, that's totally unacceptable." I said, I don't want you to be her neurologist. I want the hospital to come up with a more reasonable one." And he stormed out. He was really mad. Never wanted to talk to me again. Worked for me. So within 5 minutes, another neurologist appeared who thought it was an excellent idea, and he was prepared to add it to the chart. And she listened every day to her favorite music. Within a short period of time, like a few weeks, she was growing a new personality, and it was exactly like she was. And to make the story, I won't go into all the details of what happened, but within about 6 months, her personality was right back to the same person that she was before the injury. And I took her back to Burlington, Ontario, where we grew up, and her family and high school friends and everyone agreed that she was back to her normal self. So this was a pretty amazing phenomena. And I wrote a story about it in the Elephant Journal and put it out, and it got a huge number of readers. It was a very, very popular article. Music therapists wrote to me from all over the world saying that they hadn't thought of using music in that way, as a hologram of a personality. So if someone loses their personality, you can use this set of music to help them to grow a new personality. So anyways, so it was successful. And if you look up Ian Faulkner on the Elephant Journal, you can read that article. Now, I wanted to say this earlier, my full name is Ian Faulkner Suter. And so I called myself Ian Faulkner on Facebook because my daughter, whose middle name is Rose, calls herself Megan Rose. And I thought, well, Dad can do that too. So then when I started writing articles, I decided that was a good pen name. So people should be aware that a lot of my stuff is under Ian Suter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good to know. Thank you for sharing that with us, because it's a very inspiring story, but on many different levels. Like, first of all, I wanted to say, yeah, if you get a medical professional and you don't resonate with them, fire them and get somebody else. Because unfortunately, in my own experience, I've seen all kinds of medical specialists that are just so full of ego and unwilling to try something that might actually work. And there's always another health professional that we can trade to or hire or want to have, helping us, that is more reasonable. And so people, I guess the last 3 years, what's really helped a lot is people have come to the realization that the medical industry is not a healthcare program. It's an industry that's made to make money. And that's not good enough. In my books, that's just not good enough. I wanted to tell you too, Ian, a little bit about what happened to me and our viewers that is similar, not the same by any way, but similar. I had a brain injury and I couldn't find help. It's very, people think in Canada you have this wonderful free medical system, but the truth of the matter is it's very difficult to find yourself a physician, to become your family doctor. It's very hard, in my opinion, to even get taken seriously sometimes. And so I didn't know what to do, but I was basically very depressed, very sad. I had just finished getting a university degree at the University of Victoria. And then I had this terrible thing happen to me. So I don't want to get into it too much, but I do want to say I came up with the idea of listening to love songs. And I made a playlist of all the love songs that I could find. And I put on the headphones and I listened to that for hours every day. And it made such a difference. So I'm not trying to copy what you're saying. I'm just saying that there is a wealth of opportunity for healing. And often music is, I think, a really, really important part of that. So I'm really want to, inspire people to try music in any of their life challenges and see if it might help. I'm not a medical professional, neither Ian or I are giving you medical advice, but we do want you to explore your options and to come up with things that you think will help. So that is an amazing experience, Ian, and I'm so happy for you and for Barbara and your daughter. And I'm wondering if that had anything to, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to, I'll let you finish that. I'm going to talk also about boron and its use for combating arthritis. So that's probably the next thing. I forgot to even mention it, but I think it's important.
And how would people use boron? Would they take it as a supplement?
Well, I'll jump right into it.
Sure.
I've had osteoarthritis since I was 23. You can see that I don't have any serious issues anymore. But by the time I was about 50, I couldn't walk more than a couple of blocks, and it was osteoarthritis. And I started doing my research because I'd gone to the doctor, and there were various prescriptions I could get that lower your immune system and various other things, but they had hazards of encouraging cancer to grow as well as relieving the arthritis. So I decided to go and explore and see what I could find. And it turns out that in Australia in 1968, there was a naturopath, and he was a naturopath. He was also a soil scientist. And I forget his name offhand, but it'd be easy to discover if you go on the internet. So in 1967 or so, he traveled to a place called Carnarvon in Australia from Sydney. And in Sydney, he specialized in treating arthritis. When he moved to Carnarvon, he was there for a year and he couldn't find anyone that had osteoarthritis. And so
Hmm.
he thought, well, there's something happening here. So since he was a soil scientist, he had his PhD in soil science, he did an analysis of the local soils and he looked at some of the published results, and the soil was high in boron. So he started making a supplement using borax, a very carefully dosed supplement. Um, and he started taking it. And within 3 months, his osteoarthritis lifted, and most of the symptoms and the damage even repaired itself. He hadn't gotten too far into it. So I thought I'd try it as well. So I
Hmm.
started taking 9 milligrams of boron every day. And boron isn't a magic thing on its own. People, whenever I publish it, people write to me, say, well, I tried boron, it didn't work, but they didn't. It's only a catalyst that helps a magnesium and vitamin D to be absorbed by your body. So the real
Hmm.
magic is the vitamin D and uh, the vitamin, the vitamin D and the magnesium are the magic elements. But the boron is a catalyst that allows your body to take those things in. And without the magnesium and the vitamin D and the boron, it's not a successful treatment. So I did do all three, and within 3 months, most of my pain had disappeared. And within another few months, I could do ecstatic dance for a couple of hours. I could run. I was riding my bicycle everywhere. And one day I rode to the family doctor, and he was his office. He could see people arriving. He saw me arrive on my bike. I wasn't limping anymore, and he said, "Well, what happened?" He said, "You weren't in this kind of shape for most of the years that I've known you." So I told him about the boron, and I had just written an article for the Elephant Journal about it, which got a phenomenal number of reads. And so I gave him a copy of the article, and he had osteoarthritis, and it worked for him too. So he started handing out my article when he had patients suffering from osteoarthritis. And I should say that for rheumatoid arthritis, it's somewhat useful, but for osteoarthritis, this treatment can be miraculous. So I've given out the details to many people, and it's helped many people. So that's I consider that to be. Oh, and I this is a funny story. I when I wrote the Elephant Journal article, um, and the Elephant Journal is uh, sort of it's a yoga Buddhist magazine, really. It's an online magazine. So I sent the article in, first of all, to a couple of Canadian magazines, and they said they couldn't publish it because they could only publish stuff like that if it was written by a doctor. And so
Hmm.
I was kind of disappointed. And I said, but all the medical research is there. I got links to all the medical research. And they said, no, it can't, has to be written by a doctor. So I wrote to the Elephant Journal. I figured, well, they'll surely publish it. And their lawyers got back to him saying, oh, well, no, you have to be a doctor. So I knew I have a Buddhist leaning. So I said to the editor, the owner of the Elephant Journal, um, you can't, as an engaged Buddhist, turn down helping millions of people to not suffer anymore. I said it's just like so core to Buddhism that you have to publish. And
Hmm.
he agreed and he published. So
Wonderful.
it's so it's a good demonstration of how it's not a good idea to give up if 5 or 6 magazines won't publish something you think is important. You just keep trying, and
Hmm.
and that was that was a key thing to get that published. And it had something like it got 20,000 reads in the first 2 weeks or something, and it spread all over, and it got reprinted in other magazines wrote to me. So I would really highly recommend for anyone suffering from osteoarthritis, you really should explore the boron solution, which
Hmm.
has been medically proven since 1968. But and it's actually I'll give a few key references. If you look up the article called "Nothing Boring About Boron," and it's written by the USA National Institute of Health, and it talks about all the same things, including it said that if enough boron is in the diet, 30% of cancers do not occur.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I looked up in Health Canada, and Health Canada has a similar article, not as well written, but it says exactly the same thing, that it's a treatment for osteoarthritis, but also is a cancer preventative agent. So anyways, that'll be of
Oh,
interest to people, and I'll leave it
very,
to explore.
very interesting. Very interesting. I actually do take vitamin D, and well, I take a few different vitamins, but I also actually take boron. I get it in a tablet form, but I only take it twice a week because I don't want to overdo it. But that's very interesting. I also have osteoarthritis, which actually is gotten, I would say it's not 100% better, but it's certainly a lot better than it used to be. I don't have the pain anymore. I can bend my fingers now and do things like that. So it's interesting. You and I have so many synchronicities, and yet we've never met before. It's really
Well,
interesting.
I should say that several times a week taking one pill isn't good enough. Those standard capsules are 3 milligrams of boron. It takes
Mm-hmm.
9 milligrams daily to treat arthritis.
Oh, good to
So
know.
you'd have to take three. You'd have to take three a day to get the full benefit.
Okay, I didn't
And
know that.
once you've fully recovered, then you can go back to only taking one a day. But one a day is only maintenance to make sure that you don't get arthritis.
Right,
So
right.
you'll have better
Oh, thank
success
you.
with it if you increase.
Yes, thank you. I actually will try that. And that's really good advice. So, somewhere in the mix, you started inventing some amazing things. I really encourage everybody to go to your website and scroll down and take a look at some of the videos that Ian has, not to mention the links, and of course all his amazing articles from the Elephant Journal. But I watched one video of a woman who was using one of your devices, and it was helping her with her studying at university. Anyone who's been to university, it's incredibly difficult. It took me 5 years to get my degree. And it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. I think probably the only thing that's more difficult is raising children, which is a big job itself. But
That's a big job.
to do the job properly and to have your offspring grow up to be responsible, wonderful human beings, yeah, it takes quite a bit of effort, but so does getting a degree. So do you want to speak a bit about that or any of your other
Oh,
inventions, Ian?
okay. I have a whole history of that. I've been a professional inventor for 40 years, and happens is companies will come to me and they have an idea and they'd like a widget that does this and it does that, and I have electronic skills so I can create those things.
Mhm.
Here is one that turned into a product. It's the mind body harmonizer, and there's little clips that go on the ears, and it provides for a gentle brain stimulation. But this is based on a device that goes back to 1904, and it's now called cranial electrotherapy stimulation. So I delved into that world. That was interesting. And that was for treating depression and just generally stimulating the brain. Um, since then, I've found that magic mushrooms are a more successful specific treatment for, it, sorry, more specific treatment for depression, for untreatable depression. A number of friends have had great success by going to therapists that specialize in overcoming depression with magic mushrooms. The brain stimulation thing, that woman that you talked about, she found this device very useful for concentrating and not getting distracted by other things. So it does have
Mhm.
a sort of a focusing effect. So I've
Mhm.
been an inventor since there's a picture on that website, microsec.net, of me, and I'm in my early 20s, and I invented a machine to help blind people sort clothing. And that's when I lived in New Zealand for a year. And after that, I realized that maybe that's what I wanted to do, was to be an inventor. So it started off as a hobby, and then I got to be well known. And as far as designing devices go, I have a reputation for a bunch of engineers are working on a project and they can't quite get the thing to work. And I get called in to get them over that so that it does work.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the magic of that is that I started studying science and engineering, and then I started being an inventor and going off and creating things. And eventually I stopped going to university because I realized that this wasn't going to help me in any way. And in fact, it was somewhat of a detriment because my experience years later of working with engineers who were stumped on a project is quite often they were stumped because of their education. And it told them
Yes.
that there's 5 ways to solve this kind of a problem. So what I would do is when working with engineers is I respect their skills and all the amazing training that they've got. But I would look at the problem and think about it not from the standpoint of how it's usually done, but just think of it in terms of I'm going to do a fresh invention to solve this problem. And quite
Mm-hmm.
often I'd come up with a unique and very simple solution that would allow them to have their product uh, several 100% less complicated, and it worked. So um, it's kind of a hobby got out of control. So for 40 years, I worked with different companies around, well, really mostly in North America, developed a heart monitor system that we wear in your belt and it monitors your heart and looks for unusual events. And that one was for Harley Street Software here in Victoria. And I've done underwater exploration robots. I did a virtual reality salmon fishing machine. It's a simulated fishing machine. There's even you have a fishing rod and there's a cord that goes down behind the screen, and on the screen there's a picture of fish fighting underwater as they're being caught, and they'd be synchronized with the pulling on the rod. So that was a fun one. That was a crazy one. And it just goes on and on. If you go to my microsec.net website, there's a ton of inventions and things that I worked on over 40 years. I also did a rather strange one. I did a mechanical fish that swims in the normal way that fish swim by swiveling their bodies and tail. But anyways, I won't bore you with the details, but they're on the website. Some of them will be interesting to different people.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. What I really, by the way, on this show, no subject is taboo. We can talk about anything. And in fact, I'm hoping you will come back in the new year and we can talk about some of the other types of treatments and therapies that you've been involved in. But for today, I really wanted to focus on the inventions, and I'm so impressed with what you've done. Now, I also want to say, although I am at no time endorsing the use of psychedelics, I am going to say that I have used psychedelics very sparingly throughout my life to really help me to get unstuck. But I can certainly see, Ian, how it helps you to think outside of the box. And the problem with being in the box is there's no novel solutions. So I really related to what you said about, with all due respect to engineers and such, sometimes we need to think outside of the box, and psychedelics have certainly helped a lot of people to do that. And they're growing in popularity for the treatment of depression, anxiety. I've used them when I've been stuck, just kind of stuck, where I don't know where to go next. I know I need to change some things in my life. I know I want a new direction. And so I've only actually used them a few times. I'm wondering if you have any opinions, Ian, on which is better for people to try, either the heroic dosing, which really takes you, well, for lack of a better word, on a trip and a half, or the microdosing. Paul Stamets has the Stamets stack, where you use very small doses of psilocybin that you don't even realize that you're not having any psychedelic effect, and you take it along with niacin, and you take it along with lion's mane, and it has had some amazing results too. But I'm wondering if you just want to spend a minute talking about your own experience for the viewers who have not yet tried psychedelics for health.
Well, I'll tell you an amusing fact that I used to say this when I worked at University of Victoria for about 4 or 5 years, helping engineers come out, do their final project relating to their engineering, but relating to local companies. My job was to find local companies who might host a project for them. So that was fun. So if I was at a university function and they'd say, well, how did you and your wife meet? And I'd come right out with the real story, which is that I was the LSD dealer at the high school, and Barbara, my partner, was the customer. At this point in history, LSD was legal, and so I didn't see a problem with it. But I did get in trouble over that one. But my dad, who's a United Church minister, came in, and they were going to expel me from school. And my dad says, well, my understanding is that LSD is legal. And the principal didn't know that. And once he learned that it was legal, then I just had to promise not to sell it anymore. So, but I would say that at university, a faculty like events where they were serving a meal and everyone was get together to discuss some topic. If anyone come up to me and say, well, how did you and your wife meet? Then I'd always say exactly the story. If they were over the age of 50, they'd say, oh, I remember those days. But
Yeah.
some of the ones that were a little younger thought it was a dangerous drug that was similar to heroin. So there's been a lot of, and that's, I'll just say briefly that's, people need to understand why LSD was made illegal.
Check out my website and find many valuable resources. There's the 9 Steps to Quantum Health Transformation. This is a free, comprehensive online course. Learn about detoxification and nutrition, grounding and spiritual practices, and an advanced version of the law of attraction, giving you more of what you really want out of life. I also have my Zendomes Orgonite, which is my unique brand of orgone generators. They're ethically sourced and handmade by a friend of mine, and they're double charged for maximum effect. I also carry Comfort Crystals, which is a limited collection of energetically infused semi-precious stones. I have an array of vital services, so you can get the one-on-one support that you've been looking for. Also coaching, guidance, and I do assessments and also workshops. And then again, there are the many free resources available on my website. Wisdom to assist with energetic ascension into physical, mental, and spiritual paradise. Let us share our quantum work with you. It's your turn to heal, evolve, and thrive. Believe in your ability to succeed. Now, let's get back to the show.
It was made illegal in reality because it opened millions of minds in America to make them realize the horrors of war and to stand up and fight against the Vietnam War. And the US government, when it realized that this drug was actually causing the revolution, that's why they made it illegal.
Yep, absolutely. I was born in 1956, so by the mid 60s, I was really aware they basically had the Vietnam War televised, and it was horrible and shocking. And my parents were very conservative, and I was not. And I ended up going down to Stanley Park in Vancouver. We lived in Burnaby at the time, and hanging out with the hippies. And that's when I learned about all kinds of alternative things. And I was so happy to find out that my parents' reality was not universal. I was so happy. And although I would not call myself any kind of an in-depth psychonaut, I certainly have used psychedelics off and on during my life to help me to gain perspective and understanding. And the funny thing about it is, even though I don't use it very often, I have an amazing paranormal spiritual life that I don't know if there's a connection between the psychedelics and my spiritual life, but I definitely have a very amazing spiritual life that I am so grateful for. Especially in these crazy times we're living in, it's really hard to know what's real, what's not. There's so much false information. And the false information seems to be coming from the fact checkers. It's a real screwy deal. But part of the reason why I started the show is I wanted people to hear about what other people are doing, what they've tried, what works, what doesn't work. And I'm so happy to have you on the show today. Now, Ian, what is that you're wearing around your neck?
Okay, this
Yeah.
this is I'll put it a little closer. It's I think that's visible. So this is a thorite crystal, and that's a purple sapphire at the top. The big green crystal is a thorite, and thorite is uranium thorium silicate. So it's mildly radioactive. It's fairly radioactive, such that I've put it on a silver backing with little holes in the back so that just the right amount of radiation comes through, and it's irradiating my thymus gland. And since the and I wouldn't have known this from my education in school because of my age, but the reason that we were told when we were younger that even the tiniest dose of radiation will disrupt your DNA and it's very hazardous. At that point in history, we didn't know there was a DNA repair mechanism. So every hour of our life, there's at least 10,000 DNA repairs happen. So from the time you're born till the time you die, there's 10,000 repairs being done every hour. So your DNA is not fragile. It's being carefully maintained by the body. And low doses of radiation, especially impinging on the thymus gland, cause the repair rate to jump from 10,000 repairs an hour to 100,000 repairs per hour, so that the number of this would be estimated to do maybe about 300 DNA errors in a year. But with 100,000 repairs happening every hour, it's totally insignificant. So the Nobel Prize was just won in 2015 for the DNA repair mechanism. It's really remarkable that our body is so complex that it actually fixes its own errors.
Well, I'm a
So that's
firm
what that's all
believer in
about.
that. I'm a firm believer in lifestyle, what we eat and what we think and how we play and so many things. This doesn't surprise me. Anyway, go ahead. Are you going to show the folks your Geiger counter?
This is a Geiger counter, sort of a old school Geiger counter from the 1980s. If I hold this up to here, you can see that I wasn't joking about it giving off radiation, but if I hold it up to the back, there's not much. And that's just because it's calibrated. I drilled enough holes in it that the readings of the Geiger counter showed me it was in the safe range. But that's another invention. I'm doing a lot of work on writing right now, and I have invented too a type of bodywork called harmonic resonance bodywork, which is uses a rocking motion. And the beauty of it, it's based on Traeger bodywork, and I've added some ritual to it. I've come to realize that ritual is actually very important. And I'm surprised that medical people haven't clued into this, but if you have a new pharmaceutical drug, it has to exceed, I think it's about 25% effectiveness over a placebo. So it has to be 25% better than a placebo, or at least it has to be more than 25% effectiveness. That's what it is, because a placebo is known to be about 25% effective. Well, if you think about that, that placebo is really magic. It means that in 1 out of 4 cases, ritual will often cure the disease. So uh,
Yes.
I I did invent this special type of bodywork, harmonic resonance. It just uses harmonic rocking of the body. The beauty of it is that the patient or the client can be clothed in yoga clothes. They don't have to be naked if they were as if for massage, which would be traumatic for them if they've suffered from some kind of sexual abuse trauma.
Mhm.
So I did study sexual therapy, but more than anything, it was to understand the nature of trauma. And so that particular work, harmonic resonance, based on the work of Dr. Milton Traeger, uses harmonic rocking of the body. That is, I would lean on the hips or the shoulders and just gently, and then when I release, it bounces back. And the moment it bounces back, I add a little more energy. So the different
Mhm.
parts of the body end up rotating at their natural resonant frequency. And it's a very deep type of body work, which actually strangely goes deeper than massage because it goes right to the core of the body, to the core of the joints. It's more of
Mhm.
a bone, it works with the bones and the joints rather than the skin. Um, but, anyways, since I do a lot of health work like that, I was inspired by this particular book, which many of you will recognize. I think it was published in 73, and it revolutionized women's health. It promoted breastfeeding. It suggested, was written by women, Boston Women's Collective, I think. And the
Yes.
idea was to get rid of uh, things like, at the time, if you went to the doctor and you're a woman, you had any kind of a problem that related in any way to your reproductive system, then they would suggest a hysterectomy. Well,
Mhm.
this book got rid of that. It told women to really only consider hysterectomy if there's no other choice. And
Mhm.
also it encouraged breastfeeding. And that one simple book, Our Body, Ourselves, it revolutionized the women's world. Well,
Yeah. I
then
actually have I
men,
have a copy. I have a copy and it's an amazing book, but you were saying before the show that there's nothing like that for men. Is that true?
yeah, there's nothing like that for men. And I'm an old timer and I have prostate enlargement issues. In fact, my prostate is, let me think in term, is 500% larger than it should be, which causes problems. And it causes
Mhm.
problems of urination at nighttime and that kind of thing. And almost 10 years ago, I was supposed to go for an operation where they drilled a little hole. And
Mhm.
it sounded really terrible. So I thought I'd look for other solutions. And I did find other solutions. And so it looks like the men's world, just like the women's world of the before 1973 or so,
Mhm.
would just use surgery for everything. There's
Mhm.
lots of solutions for men that don't involve ripping your body up. And so I'm working on a book uh, for about basically about male sexual health and aging.
Mhm.
And it's a taboo topic. I've lectured to groups. How are we doing for time?
Oh, we're good. We got about 15 or 20 minutes if you're available that
Okay,
long.
I just didn't want to go into it in too much detail. But uh, when I talk to other men, um, and I started looking at the books that are out there, there's been nothing has ever come out along the lines of that book, Our Bodies, Ourselves, for men. And sometimes I've done lectures locally here, and there'd be women and men, and I'd start talking about prostate problems and aging problems. And there'd always be 1 or 2 men that would say, well, we're really not comfortable about talking about this. And they'd want me to quit lecturing. But then there'd always be lots of women who would say, no, 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 we'd like to hear more. Among
Mhm.
men, it's a taboo topic to talk
Mhm.
about health issues. And I think it might be showing weakness. Haven't got to the bottom of it, but it's a really taboo topic. And so I'm doing my best to write the book and market it to women so they can show it to their male friends. That seems
Yeah,
to be the only way to go.
well, it's another route to make it happen. When I was at university, I studied history a lot, mostly Canadian history, pre-contact to the present. And boy, there's a lot of stuff people don't know about Canadian history. But one of the things they did is they took women's power away by claiming that everything we experienced was emotional. And it was because of our ovaries, and our ovaries were actually the problem. And so we were subjugated that way. But then men were also subjugated another way. They weren't allowed to cry. They weren't allowed the full range of emotions. They weren't allowed to complain about their health. And so really undoing all the programming that isn't just in our past history. It's also multi-generational and passed down generation to generation. So that I believe that in this construct that we live in, neither men nor women are getting a fair shake. And I think it's really important to bring things back into focus and realize that we're human beings and we all have a huge unlimited potential. We just got to figure out how to make ourselves be healthy, and I believe independent of the health industry. I know people are tired of me putting down the health industry, but I just don't see anything really good coming from it. And based on my own experience that I have witnessed from other people, they're just so quick to cut. You know, in Alberta, where I live now, there's very few women who have not had cesarean sections. Right away, their babies were introduced to and became addicted to formula. The mothers are told you can't breastfeed. All of that is complete bullshit. Absolute bullshit.
Fortunately, in Ontario, when we had a child, breastfeeding was encouraged. And it might be a cultural thing from different parts of the country. You get different influences. But I have to say I have a very positive view of conventional medicine. It's just that they have key solutions to a number of things. If you get hit by a car, they can sew you back together. That is like miraculous. And there are important pharmaceutical discoveries such as insulin that have saved many lives. So I have a kind of a balanced view. If I have a health problem, I'll go talk to the doctor about what he's offering. And then I don't say, well, I'm not interested in a prescription yet. We'll come back to talk to you later. And then I research it online of how I might approach this through diet and exercise.
Yes.
And almost always there's a diet and exercise solution. Almost always. It might be adding a herb. It might be adding an anti-inflammatory like turmeric to your diet or something. But I have more of a middle view that I'll embrace both, but I'll embrace the medical solution secondary to after I've explored the other solutions.
Well,
because it is a dangerous to rely on surgery and drugs that have just been invented.
Yeah. I think when I go see the doctor, it's because I need to consult someone who's an expert on human physiology. So I go and I get the information, and then I do my own research, and then I decide for myself what I want to do about it. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because yes, there is probably a positive perspective and a way that we can benefit from medical professionals. I'm just a little bit of a sourpuss because I've had some really bad experiences with both prescription medicine and surgeries. And so that's where I'm coming from. But of course, the audience, it's up to you folks to decide what you want to do. And we're not trying to push you into a conventional medicine or allopathic medicine. We're not trying to keep you away from it either. We're just talking about our experiences. So I'm actually really glad, Ian, that you brought out those counterpoints, because it is important.
Well, it's it's about empowering. With the way the internet works, you can get access if you put the word PubMed, PUBMED, into a search for a health issue. And you need to always put that in there, because with the word PubMed, Google will only deliver you scientifically proven solutions. And there are, I've heard people who are kind of anti-medicine say, well, oh, but they're all crooked. But this is not true. There is excellent research out there, and it's
Mhm.
from all different countries. So I've heard people say, well, scientists never study the herbs, they only study the pharmaceutical drugs. This is true in North America, but if you were in Saudi Arabia or India and many other
Mhm.
countries that rely on herbal medicine, you'll see
Mhm.
that they're doing double-blind studies with herbs to cure disease. So there's some very good medical research out there, but we can consider ourselves to be empowered because we can go on the internet and read all the same stuff that the doctors can read. And if you have in a nutshell, if you read scientific information such as medical research, you can see the methodology is very complex, and that the way to process a big article like that quickly is, as a non-professional, you're not interested in the methodology. You just want to know what the conclusions are, and you
Mhm.
need to look. So you read the purpose of the experiment or the study at the top. You skip the methodology because that's going to be beyond your understanding, and you look at the conclusions and take note of those. And then you look at the very bottom and you can find out who funded the study. And this is a key
Yeah,
piece of
that's really
information too.
important.
And so the non-scientific person can fairly quickly process a bunch of scientific articles by using that approach.
Mhm.
So anyways, I feel very empowered by the fact that we have the internet and we can actually look at all the same studies that doctors can look at.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, actually, I knew that before, but I had forgotten about that. I'm really glad you brought that up. Yeah.
And
And
the
then
key thing is the word PubMed. It's a simple thing, but PUBMED will filter out all the nonsense. And if you type arthritis solutions, you get more bullshit than you get real stuff. But if you put that one word PubMed, you'll only get scientific research.
that's great. Really good to know. So we've still got a couple minutes left, and I know you have to go too, Ian, but I'm wondering, do you have a message for the viewers? Um, so now's your time to talk about anything you want to talk about that you think would inspire people, help people, anything like that. I want to give you a few minutes just to express yourself now, if that's okay.
Okay. Well, I would highly recommend personal growth work of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all of us have traumas that we've had to face in the past, and they slant the way we work with the world. And I would recommend that all of us do as much personal work as possible, because after you've done that work, when you look for solutions to problems in life, uh, those solutions will appear. Otherwise, you're kind of everything you see is kind of filtered by the trauma that you've experienced in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'd also recommend that people in any kind of a technical field do as much. It may sound strange, but you have two things you could do if you want to be an engineer. You could go to university and study engineering, and that that will give you some very, very useful skills. But there needs also to be people who don't have that training who can come up with a different perspective and a different solution. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the main thing is to have faith in yourself and to realize that you're as capable as almost anyone else in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and not don't rely on always on asking someone for the best solution. Everything that you need to know, is actually worthwhile doing some research and seeing what you really find. And finally, a very important thing is to realize that when people say, I believe in the dangerousness of low dose radiation, because everyone knows that it's dangerous. That when I did investigate radiation, it made me realize that when people say everyone knows, that doesn't mean it's real. You're only saying that everyone believes it. And for many, many years, everyone believed that the earth was flat. And millions of people, if not billions of people, believed the earth is flat. And the strange thing is that the Greeks around 400, I think it was 400 BC, realized, someone will correct me on this, Aristophanes was I'm trying to think, Eratosthenes is the guy. He found the size of the earth. And not only did he know it was a globe, but he established the exact circumference and diameter of the earth. And he was accurate to within, I think it was within a few hundred kilometers. So there we actually knew the size of it precisely. And then thousands of years passed whenever everyone thought it was flat. Well, 1,000 years passed and everyone thought it was flat. So it's never worthwhile to believe things simply because everyone believes them. Every belief is worth investigating.
Yep, I would agree. Great advice, great advice. Now, Ian, for those who live in your vicinity or even online, I don't know if you do online counseling, but do you want to tell the viewers a bit about what services and products you offer?
Well, I'm concentrating right now on, I invented this harmonic resonance bodywork, and I've been teaching it for the last few years, but I also do that work. It's useful healing work for injury and for emotional injury as well. And you can find me on the website harmonicresonance.org, which is the name that I gave to the invention. So, and even though I've done many things in my lifetime, I'm totally focused right now on teaching harmonic resonance bodywork.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And so people could email you. The email will be also in the description and ask you.
The email is the best. Yeah, I recommend going to the website, browsing through it if you're local here. And there are many reviews in there of well-known local people. So you can actually go talk to those people to see if you want to come and see me.
Yes.
So, and I also do offer classes, usually a few times a year. It's slowed down during COVID, but we actually had 2 classes during COVID. But it really slowed things down. Another thing I'd recommend for health is ecstatic dance. I go once a week for ecstatic dance, and it's solo dancing, and you just move to the music, and it's a powerful therapy. All sorts of things will get resolved by free form dancing.
So basically, it would be like our own interpretive dancing to the music that we enjoy the most. Would that be the simple recipe?
I did write an article on ecstatic dance also in the Elephant Journal, and it's just you move to the music however you feel, and you have the usual one I go to. There's 120 people. Everyone is dancing differently. Some people are laying on the floor and moving around. Some people are dancing wildly. Some people are doing Tai Chi. It's like whatever you want to do. There's no style. But that is a powerful healing practice.
And how long would people do that for? 20 minutes, an hour, 10 minutes?
That's let me think. An hour and a half. It's almost always an hour and a half. Yeah.
That's quite a bit of body movement.
The music starts very slow, and you have to learn to just move very slowly to the music. So it's a new experience for many people who are used to always being a beat that you're dancing to. And then it starts with kind of a meditation, then the music builds up in speed and it gets really intense for probably a good hour. And then it tapers off to be really slow again. And then
Mm-hmm.
everyone lays down and there's 5 minutes of meditation, and then everyone forms a circle and talks about anything that they experienced, and then everyone disperses.
Wow. Wow. That sounds fantastic. And that would be a really good form of exercise, especially here in Alberta, where it's so cold and so much snow for, you know, certainly a lot longer than we have the nice weather here. And I'm always looking for innovative ways that people can stay home and still get exercise or therapy. I'm a big fan of the therapeutic bath, where you put in a lot of Epsom salts and sea salt, and you can even put in rosemary and herbs and all those things. And then I take orgone generators and I put them in the tub with me, because the waters connect and the salts connect us energetically to the plumbing, which is grounded. So although, 5 or 6 months out of the year, we're not going to go out and be barefoot in the grass, but this is another way that we can become deeply, deeply grounded and relaxed. So there's so many ways, and there's so many tools to put in our tool belt, to help us to be basically reclaim our sovereignty, our health, our vitality. And in that way, we help create a better world. And it's not that hard to do. We just got to do it. And I'm really happy to have you on the show today, Ian. I really appreciated you reaching out to me to be a guest, because I think you've got so much really valuable information. And again, as I mentioned before, maybe come back in the new year and we could talk about some other aspects of what you do, because you're just a wealth of information. And like I mentioned before, we're going to have all the links in the description. So please do check out Ian's websites and his information and his articles he's written. And I know one other question I have, Ian, before I let you go, and that is, do you do remote sessions or do you do remote training? So if someone was say in Texas, would they be able to contact you and make arrangements?
Well, I've just decided in the last month to do that, because I have men coming to me who have various health problems to do with aging, and I help them out. And there's often are very simple solutions that aren't surgical. So I'm planning to do Zoom meetings to help people in the same way. Yes.
Wonderful.
So if you
Wonderful.
email me, we can connect in that way.
Wonderful. I'm really happy to hear that. So that's about all I have for questions, but I want to give you another minute, Ian, just in case there's something else that you forgot to say or that you want to say or anything like that before we say goodbye.
No, not really, but I'm glad that you are running a presentation like this to collect ideas from people, and I do the same thing. I try to talk to as many people as I can when I'm trying to solve a problem, especially a health problem. Find out what other people are doing. That I'm starting to think I might like to go see a naturopath, because friends of mine have had very good luck with in this. This was an example. A friend of mine had high blood pressure. She'd been struggling with it. Went to a naturopath. They changed her diet, and the high blood pressure problem went away forever. So
Yeah,
they're a good resource. And because the shortage of physicians in BC, the naturopaths are starting to be given some coverage by the medical plan.
Oh, fantastic. Really good news. Because that was a bit of a barrier, that people needed to pay out of pocket for everything, and not everybody has the resources to do that. And I believe everyone, it's a human right to have medical care or even alternative medical care. So I'm really, really happy to hear that. So
Well, for sure,
go ahead.
there's a difficulty. Should I run here? Can I say one more thing?
Sure, absolutely.
Well, I noticed, like for my own therapy, that people will avoid it. Oh, it's not covered. And there's a Canadian attitude because of healthcare, socialized medicine.
Yeah.
People say, oh, well, it's not covered, then I won't use it. But
Mm-hmm.
my experience in life has been that all of those therapies that aren't covered are actually the key therapies that you should seek out first.
Mm-hmm.
If I mean, unless it's an emergency situation,
Mm-hmm.
because it's been my experience over and over and over again that the therapies that are not covered by the medical plan are key therapies
Yeah, I would agree
because
with you. And there's a
the
huge,
medical plan is associated with, well, it's associated with profit. It's almost run by the pharmaceutical industry. So
mm-hmm.
it's unfortunate that that's the only type of medicine that's covered. But times are
Mm-hmm.
changing. Now that they're
Yes.
bringing in naturopaths, that's a sign that times are changing.
Yes. And I'm very, very happy about that. So I guess that's about it today. I want to say thank you, Ian, very much for joining us on the Quantum Guide Show. I want to thank all the viewers because without you, we wouldn't even have a show. And I've enjoyed presenting this information very, very much. I'm coming up to soon my 100th episode. So I guess we'll have our 100th episode in January. So it's very exciting. And this is something I never dreamed I would do, but I just wanted to and did it. Just really that simple. And so I just want to thank everybody and Ian, and we'll see you next week, everybody, on the Quantum Guide Show. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Quantum Guide Show. Become the change that you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to my YouTube, Odyssey, and Telegram channels. Like this video and share it with your friends. You can also find the Quantum Guide Show and my other podcast called Aliens and Astrology on the Forbidden Knowledge News Network. That's www.forbiddenknowledge.news. And while you're at it, check out my website, www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com, where you will find some amazing products and services and an abundance of free resources to help you with your journey. All of the links are in the description below. And in the meantime, until we see you next week, keep up the good work.
Surrendering to endlessness puts all my inner strife to rest. For time gives birth to hurriedness. It all makes sense, well, more or less. And the sages put me to their test. With heart and soul, I do my best to find the answers to my quest. I wonder and I must confess, I don't know where it comes from, but I know it's okay. If this is all an illusion,